بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, والسؤال للغني بمال أو حرفة, and begging for someone who is solvent by money or uh, by a trade, by money or by a trade. I mean, he can go and work and make some money. By money means he already has money. By a trade means he doesn't have money, but he can go get the money if he puts some effort and work. الشرح, the explanation, is أن من جملة معاصي اللسان التي هي من الكبائر, that amongst the sins of the tongue that is a major sin, أن يسأل الشخص المكتفي بالمال أو الحرفة, is for a person who is solvent by already having money or by being able to hustle and make money, بأن كان مالكا ما يكفيه لحاجاته الأصلية, by already owning what suffices him of his fundamental needs. أو كان قادرا على تحصيل ذلك بكسب حلال, or he was capable of getting that by legal earning. وذلك لحديث, and this is a sin because of the hadith, لا تحل المسألة لغني ولا لذي مرة سوي. Begging is not lawful for a wealthy person, nor for the able-bodied. What's meant, though, by being able-bodied is that he can get money if he goes to work. It's possible, though, that someone is able-bodied and even he might be highly skilled, but he can't find work, so he's not able to work. He's able-bodied, but he can't find work. That's possible. رواه أبو داود والبيهقي. Abu Dawood and Al-Bayhaqi narrated this hadith. وَالْمِرَّةُ هِيَ الْقُوَّةُ أي القدرة على الاكتساب والسوي تام الخلق. So the mirrah is the one who can work, who's able to earn, and sawi is the able-bodied. The able-bodied who's able to earn. Begging is not lawful for the wealthy or the able-bodied who's able to earn. والسوي تام الخلق. وروى البخاري ومسلم من حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أنه قال. And Al-Bukhari and Muslim narrated from the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar, may Allah accept from him and his father, that he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا يزال الرجل يسأل الناس حتى يأتي يوم القيامة وليس في وجهه مزعة لحم. A person won't stop begging the people until he comes on resurrection day without a bit of flesh on his face. والمزعة القطعة الصغيرة من اللحم. يعني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من شحذ بغير حاجة. What the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant here is the one who begged without need, who needlessly begged. لأنه هو المذموم, because he's the one who's blameworthy. وأما الشاحذ عن حاجة, as for someone who begs because he's needy, فلا يذم, he is not dispraised. فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم للسائل uh, فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم did indeed say, للسائل حق, the beggar has a right, ولو جاء على فرس, even if he comes upon a horse, يعني even if he comes upon a stallion. أي لأنه قد يكون الرجل يملك فرسا وهو فقير, meaning that because a man might own a horse but he's still poor. ليس عنده كفايته, he does not have his sufficiency. Person, he could be actually poor and he might even have nice clothing. He might have clothing in such a way that he can present himself decently. That doesn't mean he's not poor. And he might even have a house and a car and even a slave, and he's still poor because he can't do without these things. So he needs them, and he's still poor because he cannot fulfill his needs by what he has. وروى مسلم من حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أنه قال, and Muslim narrated from the hadith of Abu Hurairah, may Allah accept from him, that he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, من يسأل الناس أموالهم تكثرا فإنما يسأل جمرا فإنما يسأل جمرا فليستقل أو ليستكثر. Whoever begs the people for their money insistently or a lot, he is begging for a hot coal. But this part, فَلْيَسْتَقِلَّ أَوْ لِيَسْتَكْثِرْ, not sure what that means. ويفهم من ذلك أيضا أنه لا يجوز للمرأة المكتفية بنفقة زوجها أن تطلب من زوجها أن يشتري لها الأشياء الثمينة. And it is understood from that also that it is not permissible for a woman who suffices with her husband's spousal support to seek from her husband to buy her expensive things. كأساور الذهب, like golden bracelets, ونحو ذلك, and the likes. إلا أن كان قال لها طلبي مني ما شئت, unless he had said to her, request for me whatever you want. فلها أن تطلب منه, then with this permission she is allowed to seek from him whatever she wants. أما الأشياء الخفيفة المتعارف عليها, أي بين النساء التقيات, فهذه يجوز لها أن تطلبها. As for the light things, the inexpensive common things that are normal for the women, the God-fearing women, it's permissible فيجوز لها, it's permissible for her to request that. كأن طلبت منه أن يشتري لها شيئا من الحلوى, like for her to request from her husband to buy her a piece of candy or to buy her some sweets. This is not forbidden begging. والأحسن إذا أرادت الطلب أن تقول له, and what's better if she wanted to request something from him, yani for him to buy something for her, أن تقول له أن تقول له is for her to say to him, لو جلبت لنا كذا, if you were to get such and such for us. بدل أن تقول له, instead of saying to him, اجلب لنا كذا, instead of saying to him, get this for us. So, لو جلبت, had you gotten this for us, or had only gotten this for us, or something like that. وكذلك يجوز لها أن تطلب منه أخذها لبعض المطاعم لأكل الطعام. And also it is permissible for her to request from her husband to take her to some restaurants to eat food. وكذلك يجوز لها أن تطلب المال منه لتذهب إلى الحج. And also it's permissible for her to request money from him to go to Hajj. لأن هذا المال طلبته لعمل فيه طاعة ليس للتنعم. Because this money, she requested it for a deed that is worship, not for luxury. أما ما جرى بين الأصدقاء العادة بطلبه بعضهم من بعض. As for what is normal for friends to request from each other, فهذا لا يعد شحاذة محرمة. This is not counted as forbidden begging. كأن يقول له عندما تعود كأن يقول له, like for one to say to his friend, عندما تعود من الحج تهدنا مساويك أو زمزم أو نحو ذلك مما جرت به العادة. Like for him to say, when you come back from Hajj, give us some sea wax or some Zamzam water. Get us some Zamzam water when you come back from Hajj. Or the likes of that amongst the normal things. Here's a footnote here. It says, Shiam. Let me look that word up real quick there. Ashima al-khuluq. It is not the manners of the pious to sit without working. Rather, what is known about them is working to suffice themselves and their families. Al-Junaid, the Imam of the Sufis, he had a store. Yaqrudu, he had a store, he used to sit in a store. And Ar-Rawas, he used to sell heads of sheep. And Uthman and others amongst the big Sahaba, they were traders. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a trader, and Idris, he was a tailor, and Zakaria, Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, he was a carpenter, and every one of God's prophets was a shepherd, but not as a profession. Every one of God's prophets was a shepherd, but not as a profession, meaning they did do this job, but wasn't that's his profession, he's just shepherd, that's it. Meaning, no, some of them did that. Like, for example, I've worked in laying carpets. I'm not a carpet layer, though. It's not my profession. So every one of God's prophets he did do work as a shepherd at some time in his life without that being his profession. And the prophets were the examples for the people and the highest of the people in status. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. He said, is she allowed to request clothing for the Eid? I don't know. Other than the regular nafaqah, I don't know. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. وَالنَّذْرُ بِقَصْدِ حِرْمَانِ الْوَارِثِ, and making an oath or a pledge with the intent of depriving an heir. Heir, it's H-E-I-R, silent H, or H. That's what they call in the UK, right? H. الشرح أن من معاصي اللسان التي هي من الكبائر أن ينذر الرجل نذرا يقصد به أن يحرم وارثه. The explanation is that amongst these sins of the tongue, which is a major sin, is for someone to make a vow or a pledge, the point of which is to deprive his heir. فلو وقع ذلك من شخص لم يصح ذلك النذر. So had that come from someone, had someone done that, such a nadhr would not be valid. ومن هذا النذر الفاسد أن يقول, and a case of this invalid vow or pledge is to say, نذرت مالي للفقراء, I vow to give all of my money to the poor. أو لمسجد, or to a masjid. أو نحو ذلك بقصد حرمان الوارث, or the likes of that, with the intention of depriving the heir. وكذا يحرم عليه أن يهب كل ماله بقصد حرمان الوارث. And also it is forbidden for someone to gift all of his money just to deprive his heir. وهذا أيضا من الكبائر, and this is also amongst the major sins. أما إن كان يعلم أن ابنه هذا فاسق فاجر. But if one knew that this son of his was a major sinner and a vice doer, يبذر هذا المال إن تركه له بعد وفاته في الحرام. He knows that if he leaves this money for this son of his after he dies, then this son of his will spend it in the haram. وَيَفْجُرُ بِهِ, and he will commit major sins with it. فَقَالَ الْأَبُ مِنَ الْآنِ أَنَا أَنْظُرُ مَالِي لِلْفُقَرَاءِ أو لِلْمَسْجِدِ أو لِشَخْصٍ مُعَيَّنٍ. And then the father said, now I pledge my money or vow my money to the poor or to the masjid or to some particular person. فَنَذَرَهُ تَحَرُّبًا من أن يصل هذا المال بعد وفاته إلى ابنه الفاسق الفاجر. So he made this pledge to divert this money from getting to his major sinner, vice doing son. فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ ذَنْبٌ. Then he has no sin in this case. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, وترك الوصية بدين أو عين لا يعلمهما غيره. And abandoning, leaving a will about a debt or an object that no one knows but oneself. And this will, this wasiyah that I keep translating as will, does not have to be written. إن هذا الدين يسر. Indeed, this religion is easy. الشرح أن من معاصي اللسان ترك الوصية بدين على الشخص. Amongst the sins of the tongue is for a person to neglect leaving a will about a debt that he has. أو عين لغيره, or some object that he's holding for someone else. عنده بطريق الوديعة أو نحوها. It's in his possession by way of safekeeping or the like. فيجب على من عليه أو عنده ذلك أن يعلم به غير وارث. And so it's obligatory. Here's a footnote here. Obligatory when one fears sudden death, or he became a deathly ill, lethally ill, and the likes. It's obligatory on anyone who has that on him, a debt on him, or with him, an object in his possession that belongs to someone else, to inform other than an heir about it. Why? For fear of the treachery of the heir who awaits the death of his relative so that he can take his money. غير وارث يثبت بقوله ولو واحدا ظاهر العدالة. Someone who's not an heir, whose word is reliable, even if it's only a single individual who is apparently trustworthy. Apparently trustworthy. That means there's nothing to the contrary to say he's not trustworthy. That's going to be your default position about any Muslim you encounter. That's not being naive, that's thinking well. But to think someone is not trustworthy for no reason, because you don't know him, for example, then this is not, what that is thinking ill of others. So there's two types of trustworthiness: apparent trustworthiness and inward trustworthiness. Inward trustworthiness is going to be confirmed for someone who is famous for his religiosity and piety, like a Shafi'i, for example, or Malik. And apparent trustworthiness is going to be for some Muslim that we don't know about him otherwise. إن خاف ضياعه بموته, he must do that if he fears losing it or squandering it because of his death. أو يرده حالا, or else let him return it immediately, خوفا من خيانة الوارث, for fear of the treachery of the heir. Yes, because the money, when it comes to the money, the people act funny. Some of the people are happy about the death of their relative. Why? Because they want to take his money. So in this case, don't tell an heir about the debt that you have or about some object that you're holding for someone. Because if he's one of those kind, then he's not going to tell anyone, just so that those things can get lumped into the inheritance so that he can have a chance to take it, or they. فإن علم بها غيره كانت الوصية مندوبة. If someone else does know about this debt or object, then leaving a will about it is merely recommended, not obligatory. ويشمل ما ذكر ما كان دينا لله كزكاة أو لآدمي. And what has been mentioned includes any debt to God, like zakat, or to a human, to an Adamite. وتسن الوصية لغير المذكور. The will is recommended for other than what has been mentioned. لحديث, because of the hadith. ما حق امرئ مسلم يبيت ليلتين إلا ووصيته مكتوبة عنده. I don't know how to explain that hadith. Narrated by Al-Bukhari. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, والانتماء إلى غير أبيه أو إلى غير مواليه. And by the way, so we're reading here this Bughya, which is extensive details about these sins in the summary of obligatory knowledge. But don't forget to take the time to review on your own, even like if you have lucid word. Review it so that you keep those sins fresh in your heart, so you know what they are. Or other books, if you have, for example, a brief summary, a brief explanation of the summary. That's good explanation in English. And also Umdatul Raghib, which is the summary of the Bughya, has been translated into English, if you can get your hands on it, for your reviewing and teaching others. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, الانتماء إلى غير أبيه, for one to affiliate himself as the son of someone other than his real father. أو إلى غير مواليه, or as the liberated person of other than his true liberator. And when we say he attributes himself to someone other than his real father, this doesn't mean you can't call someone father or son or dad, for example, who's not your real dad. Let's see what the Shaykh has here before I say much more. الشرح, the explanation. أن من معاصي اللسان التي هي من الكبائر, is that amongst the sins of the tongue, which is amongst the major sins, أن ينتمي الرجل إلى غير أبيه, is for a man to attribute his himself to other than his father. كأن يقول, like for him to say, أنا ابن فلان, I am the son of Fulan, وهو ليس ابنه, and he's not a son. So he says, أو أن ينتمي أو أن ينتمي أو أن ينتمي المعتق إلى غير مواليه, or for an emancipated slave, that means not a slave anymore, to attribute himself to other than his emancipator. أي الذين لهم عليه ولاء عتاقه, his emancipators are those who have the relationship of emancipation, I'll say. ولاء العتاقه. So slavery is an institution that establishes some ties between people, just like marriage is an institution that establishes ties between people. So just like by marriage, some people then become bound to each other in some type of familial, I think that's the right pronunciation, family bond, some type of familial bond. So slavery is similar to that. Even to the extent that if you freed a slave, then there is something between you and that slave remaining. Some kind of relationship, which is called wala. And for that reason, you might wind up inheriting from that slave if he doesn't have heirs who inherit from him. Or you might wind up being the one who gives that woman, well, it's not a slave, you might wind up inheriting from that freeman who was a slave. Or you might wind up giving that woman in marriage who was your slave because of what remains between you of relationship that was established by that prior slavery. لأن في ذلك تضييع حق, because in this false attribution, in this false affiliation, there is squandering, misappropriating the rights. لأن الولاء يثبت به شرعا أحكام, because this wala, this relationship that occurred because of the slavery, religiously legally makes rules confirmed. Just like being born to someone, there's rules because of that. That's why you can't falsify this information here. Rules like inheritance and like giving women away in marriage. What if that girl's not really his daughter? Then he can't give her away in marriage. Not without being made an acting judge, for example. It wouldn't be valid for him on thinking that's his daughter or this girl thinking that's her father to give her away in marriage like that. So this is why you can't do it. You can't falsify this information. I'm saying falsify here to also, I mean to exclude by using the word falsify here some cases where someone might call someone dad, for example, like your step parent. Someone raised you, he's not your real father, but he raised you like a father and you call him that. But it's known that he's not your real father and that you're not supposed to inherit from him, and there's no confusion here. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that leads to misappropriating the rights that are religiously established. منها أن المعتق يرث المعتق إن لم يكن له ورثة. Amongst those rules is that the liberator inherits from the liberated if he doesn't have any heirs. ويكون ولي معتقته إن لم يكن لها ولي في النكاح, and he would be the guardian of his emancipated woman, yani a woman that he freed, if she doesn't have a guardian for marriage contract. أي أن الأمة التي هي مملوكة, meaning a slave woman, an owned slave woman, أعتقها سيدها, her master freed her, فصارت حرة, and thus she became free. ثم أرادت أن تتزوج, and then she wanted to get married. إن لم يكن لها من أهلها من يجري لها العقد, if she didn't have anyone from her family who would conduct the contract for her, الذي أعتقها يكون وليها, the one who freed her will be her guardian في النكاح, in the marriage contract. روى البخاري من حديث سعد رضي الله عنه أنه قال. Yeah, so we're talking about here also closing a door of fraud. It's just still the same thing, misappropriating the rights, deliberately or undeliberately. Deliberately is going to be fraud. Al-Bukhari narrated from the hadith of Sa'ad, may Allah accept from him, that he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, من ادعى إلى غير أبيه وهو يعلم أنه غير أبيه, if someone claims other than his father while knowing that he's not his father, فالجنة حرام عليه, then the garden is forbidden for him. Not absolutely, though. The words of that hadith might give someone the impression that the garden is absolutely forbidden for him. And the Shaykh clarifies, معناه لا يدخل في الأولين. What it means is that he shall not enter with the first batches. يدخل بعد أن يعذب. He will enter after being punished, مع الآخرين, with the last of those who enter. إن لم يعفو الله عنه, if God does not pardon him. وروى أبو داود والترمذي وابن ماجه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. And Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, من ادعى إلى غير أبيه فعليه لعنة الله. Anyone who attributes himself falsely, attributes himself fraudulently, attributes himself to other than his father, then upon him is God's damn, or the curse of God is upon him. So look there. Maybe somebody would do this sin without knowing what the Prophet said, that he would be amongst the last to enter the garden, and then he'll find himself on Resurrection Day, if he died as a Muslim, that although he died as a Muslim, he has to wait. He can't get into paradise yet. And then he would say, if only I hadn't done that. And if he didn't know that this is what the messenger said, he would say, I didn't know that doing that would result in me having to wait and I can't get into the garden yet. And look, also, this is one of the sins that gets a person damned or cursed. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. Yeah, and it would be good if we could compile sins that result in being damned. What do we have? This one here. We have also cutting the ties with the Muslim relatives without an excuse. And we have also bestiality. Also, for the woman to refuse her husband and he doesn't accept. And speaking without knowledge, correct. Speaking about religion without knowledge. قال المؤلف رحمه الله. So if we come past more, then we'll review all of those again. And we'll keep adding, inshallah, as we review. And if you go back and review and you catch some, remind us. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, والخطبة على خطبة أخيه, proposing to his brother's fiancée, proposing to one's brother's fiancée. This is khutbah with a kasra, not khutbah with a dhamma. Khutbah with a dhamma, that's the sermon. Khutbah with a kasra is the proposal. The marriage proposal. If that marriage proposal is accepted, then you become engaged. And engagement is non-binding. Non-binding. Ash-sharh, the explanation. أن من معاصي اللسان أن يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه, is that amongst the sins of the tongue is for a man to propose to his brother's fiancé. أي أخيه في الإسلام, meaning his brother in Islam. أي أن يطلبها للزواج, meaning to seek to marry her. بعد أن طلبها الأول, after the first one sought her. And the meaning here is, and he was accepted. The first one sought her and was accepted, thereby confirming their being engaged. Like he said to her father, he went to her father and said, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I came to you to seek the hand of your daughter in marriage. And then that father said, let me get back to you. And then he comes to him later and he says, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We accept your proposal. And then now he's engaged to that girl. Or, for example, a man said to a woman who's a grown woman and take care of her own affair, marry me. And she said, okay. So now they are engaged. وإنما يحرم ذلك بعد الإجابة ممن تعتبر منه من ولي مجبر أو منها ومن ولي دون إذن الأول بدون إذن الأول. And this is only forbidden after the answer, meaning the affirmative answer from someone who has regard, someone whose answer is given regard, such as a compelling guardian. Compelling guardian is the one who can give his daughter away without her permission. That father, who he could give his daughter away without her permission, so that has its own rules, such as that there is no animosity between him and his daughter, and that the man he's marrying her to is a match or he compliments her that has religious rules. Like if she's the daughter of the chief, he's not going to marry her to a farmer. And also, she's a virgin. The deflowered woman does not have a compelling guardian. The virgin girl, woman or girl, only this one has a compelling guardian, which is going to be her father or her father's father. Oh, minha, or from her personally, she accepted. Oh, minha wa min waliyin, or from her and a guardian, biduni idni al-awwal, to do that without the permission of the first one. So it's not absolutely forbidden. In other words, if you want to step to her after someone already got engaged to her, then you need to go to the one who's engaged and seek his permission. If he accepts, then you can step to her. فَأَمَّا إِنْ أَذِنَ فَلَا حُرْمَةَ فِي ذَلِكَ. As for if the first one who is currently engaged to her accepts, then there is no prohibition in the second one proposing. وَكَذَلِكَ إِنْ أَعْرَضْ. And likewise, if he changes his mind about marrying her, then it is permissible for the second one to propose to her. فَلَوْ كَانَ الْخَاطِبُ الْأَوَّلُ كَافِرًا ذِمِّيًّا خَطَبَ كِتَابِيَّةً. And also, if the first engaged one, the fiancé is for the male and the female. The male fiancé, if he were a disbeliever who was a subject of the Islamic State, he was a citizen, he was a non-Muslim citizen of the Islamic State, and he was engaged to a Jewish or Christian woman, امتنع أن يخطب المسلم على خطبته. It is forbidden also for a Muslim to propose to his fiancé. وإنما حرم ذلك لما فيه من الإيذاء والقطيعة. And this is only forbidden because of what that involves of harm and severing ties. روى البخاري ومسلم من حديث ابن عمر. Al-Bukhari and Muslim narrated from the hadith of Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, may Allah accept from him and his father, أنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that he said, the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا يخطب أحدكم على خطبة أخيه حتى يترك الخاطب قبله أو يأذن له. None of you proposes to his brother's fiancé until the fiancé, yani the first brother, the brother who is engaged, calls off the marriage before, or gives him permission. And if they were engaged, this doesn't establish any relationship between them. It's just a promise. This engagement is a promise for him to marry her.